All right. Today I want to talk to you guys about the four agreements. Okay? The four agreements. And these is by Don Miguel Ruiz. It came from a great book that I read quite a few years ago. And I'll be honest, man, I recommend everybody read it. All right. The four agreements are: be impeccable with your word, don't take anything personally, don't make assumptions, and always do your best. And as cliche and general as they see in the book, man, they really go in depth on how doing these things really leads you off to success for a better life. Excuse me, I'm kind of rough on this camera, getting a little better at it. It's been a while. But let me read you some of the small font here. It says again, the four agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz: be impeccable with your word. And what that means is speak with integrity. Say only what you mean. Say only what you mean. And what is that? And what are we saying there when we say only what you mean? You see, a lot of times you're talking out of frustration, but you haven't taken the time to even acknowledge that yourself, and you just blurt out something in your mouth. How many times have you said "I hate you," knowing good and well you don't really hate the person? You're just frustrated at the moment because you're being emotional, void of logic, right? I'll give you a good example. There's been some tragic stuff in the news. I've had friends go online and post these thoughts and ideas and these radical opinions, and nothing that they're saying coordinates with their life. They don't truly feel that way. But because they're so caught up in the frustrations, they say these words, these curses. How many times have you had a fight with someone in your family and they say that's why you're not gonna be successful, knowing good and well, at least I hope, in some cases they might, but usually no one really wants to see you do bad. They just want to make sure you're prepared to take on whatever ambitious workload or idea you have. Okay? They're not really saying what they mean though. They're not talking clearly. Right? It also says avoid using the word to speak against yourself or to gossip about others. I'm going to say that again. Avoid using the word to speak against yourself or to gossip about others. I try to stay away from gossip. Gossip is really when you're spreading information about someone else that's not presently in the room. If they're not there, we shouldn't talk about them. That's something I try to put into practice. I don't like anybody talking about me unless you're maybe promoting something that I'm doing, which in that case is productive. But other than that, typically conversations about somebody is counterproductive. Why? Because what you're getting engaged in now is hearsay, because you don't know everything to be true. You have your assumptions and you're moving with those assumptions. And that's why gossip can be such filthy. Like, I'll give you a good example. If you're into sports, LeBron James recently signed with the Philadelphia 76ers. Congratulations to him. All right. But there was a lot of rumors going on that he was going to go to Miami, that he wanted to return there. That's where he had success early on with the Miami Heat. But it wasn't true. But some of you really believed it. You really bought into that. You really thought that LeBron James was going to return to Miami. Why? Because of the hearsay that you heard from someone else. They had nothing concrete to tell you that, though. They've probably never met LeBron James. They have no idea who he is. But they continue to talk as if they knew, as if they just had dinner with him the night before and discussed his long-term values and views. Okay? This is the damage of gossip. All right? You may have a friend going through a hard time. His behavior is changing. It is not what you're used to. And people will commune together and talk about things in which they believe is the reason for that behavior without consulting and getting a proper diagnosis of the issue. Maybe he's actually in depression, but you think he's being lazy. Right? That's gossip for you. You had nothing to base that on but your bias and opinions. Stay away from those things, because that thing's nothing about logic. It's what you feel. And your feelings will trick you on and on and on again. Use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. And what that means is be intentional with what you say. Words have power. And seek to talk from strength, truth, that is, and love, meaning hoping to bring people together, not break people up. Okay? Give you an example. When I saw people that have sometimes disparaging remarks at things that are in the news, a lot of that stuff that they're saying is not founded. It's not actually true. It's just their overwhelmed bias and opinions. And this could be due to past experiences, which is valid. So I do hear you. But the fact of the matter is we don't have all the facts and we shouldn't jump to conclusions. We really need to sit this thing out and let everything play its course. Yeah, I know typically that doesn't work out in our favor. That's okay. We can't base everything on the past. Maybe today's the day that things finally get right. We have to learn to be optimistic, not pessimistic. Okay? So be impeccable with your word. And really, to me, to be impeccable with your word, you just got to think more. Think before you speak. Listen. Scan the room. Look at everything. Get the facts in order. And then give your opinion. You know, a lot of, some of my friends and even family, I often have conflict when they want to start talking about like mental health diagnoses and strategies for depression and anxiety, and even better, talking about listening skills, right? Everybody swears, I know how to listen, I know how to listen. What training did you get on that? Because you do need to be trained on listening, because people by nature don't listen. You hear, right? You hear, like there are sounds, but are you listening in tune enough to decipher what you're actually receiving? Right? Listening is looking at a kid crying and understanding they need something, not just making noise to annoy you. But most people hear, so when they hear the crying, you're annoyed. When you see a man yelling and screaming, it's understanding he's probably hurt. That's listening. Listening is able to see that man is hurt. But if you just hear, oh, here he go raging again, because all you do is hear it, okay? Most people are hearing. Listening takes training. You need to be intentional with that. I'm not saying you got to go to grad school like me, but, education does move mountains. Makes you a better person. Read more, okay? Don't take anything personally. Oh, my gosh. That's like my life story. People take stuff so personally, man. It's probably one of the biggest flaws of men. You think everything revolves around you and your experience, which couldn't be further from the truth. Okay? Things do not revolve around you. This world is ever going, and when you leave, it's going to keep spinning. It won't stop for a minute. It's not about you. It's not even about me. Okay? But let's read the fine print real fast. Nothing others do is because of you. What others say and do is a projection of their own reality, their own dream, maybe nightmare. When you are immune to the opinions and actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. That's true. I said before you, and I can testify, a lot of my life suffering has been at the demise of my inability to separate myself from someone's criticism. And one of the harshest things I've come to reality is the people sometimes in who I give that value to, they have not done enough to earn it. And I'm going to tell you right now, family, friendships, those relationships, that's not enough to earn that. It's not. Because just because they're your friendly or families doesn't mean they have the expertise to be critical of something. Right? Your friends could be critical of your mental health. Have they ever taken a class on mental health? Do they know, have they taken even the first aid training? Have they ever read a DMSN, the DSM? That's where we go to figure out what someone's mental health diagnosis is. Do they even know that exists? But yet, if they tell you got a problem, you believe it. You can't take that personally. Maybe they have the problem, Good example. You ever have a discussion with somebody and they utter the words, you think you're so smart. You ain't smarter than me. And you probably never said that you were, but they put those words together because that's one of the biggest signs of projection out there. Someone is made to feel inferior. Nobody can make you feel inferior. That's a choice. And that choice usually comes when you've taken something too personal. It's not about you. It's way bigger than you. It's way bigger than me. Right? But it's not easy to walk around and understand that. That's a mindset that you have to build and get to. Right? People are often projecting how they truly feel on you. And you got to be careful of that. It's dangerous. When somebody, for example, one of the terms that frustrates me so much in life is when someone asks me if something's hard, if it's difficult. I'm like, what's heavy for me could be light for you, and what's heavy to you might be light to me. So difficulty is such an objectionable term. It's a task. It was in depth. It took levels of work to get done. Look at it like that. And nothing worth having comes easy. Understand that. Understand that. But stop taking everything so personal. In my communications classes, I often tell my students that when you're engaging with people, when you're communicating, you have to understand there are three truths. They're your truth, my truth, and there's what actually happened. And oftentimes when we're having conversations, our dialogue isn't focusing on what actually happened. It's focused on either what you think or what I think, void of the actual truth, what really happened. This is why we have court, right? We have to have jurors. We get several of them so that they can also hear the testimony so that we can get to a closer end and a better idea of what actually happened. Because humans by nature are just too caught in bias. It's hard for you to see beyond yourself. And I tell people, I think the more education you get, the more you read, the wiser you become, the easier it is to take yourself out of it. But at a base level, most people can't. That's asking too much. Okay? When you're immune to the opinion and actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. No one should be able to say something about you and make you feel bad. That's a choice. Just like, when a child tells me somebody's calling me a name, I'm like, is it your name? It's not? Why do you respond to it? My name is Justin. If you call me anything else, I'm probably just going to ignore you. And when you come up to me and be like, yo, you hear me calling you? I'm like, no, I didn't. Because you was probably saying something that I don't acknowledge, and I don't have to. But, at 40 years old, I can say this. Did I have that same confidence maybe in my early 20s and my teens? Absolutely not, because I did not know better. But I know better now. And if you're watching this video, now you do too. And so you have to learn to apply these things. And I'm going to tell you something real. And this goes across everybody. Don't nobody know you like you, not even your parents. At 40 years old, I've been away from home longer than I've been home. So I can absolutely say that my parents don't know me better than me. They ain't been there. There's a lot of life that they weren't there for. They knew of me at the time, sure, but that's not the time we're in right now. But that kind of confidence, that experience, you just get with time. But again, nobody, like, you ever do something and somebody tells you why you did it? You a fool to believe that. Do you know, like Professor Xavier, they're able to, through telekinesis, get into your mind and follow you and see what you did? Absolutely not. Only you know why you did that. Only you know why you said that. Only you know why you feel that way. You can't let other people try to bogart you and dictate your feelings, your emotions, your thoughts, your ideas, your actions. No. What they're actually doing is revealing probably how they feel about you, what they think about you. That's what's actually happening. Okay? Don't make assumptions, which builds off of don't take anything personally. You got to find the courage to ask questions and to express what you really want. One of my, if I could be personal, a little testimony, I think one of the most painful things I've realized in my time is how few people really take the time to ask questions. I have some friends that I am partners with Just Inspire that I kind of remind about that daily. Like, I'll say something and brother will respond off with several things. And I'm like, everything you're saying has nothing to do with what I was talking about. It's just because you read that sentence and based on your experience, which might be less than mine, by the way, you created this whole idea or narrative and you went with it. Right? I said that I was hurt and you thought that I just quit. I didn't say that. I just said I was hurt. I might literally be working while I'm hurt. You don't know that. You assume that because maybe you stopped working when you get hurt that I did. But that's not true. You should have asked more questions before you write off advice. This is sometimes an issue I find with parents, especially moms, right? And maybe dads too. To have such an urge to want to fix something. But if you're not careful, you might put a cast on an arm that's not broken because you didn't take enough time to really triage and to figure out what the true problem was. Okay? We can't make assumptions. And the irony of that is listening is one of the biggest, strongest signs of love and care. If you have someone in your life that will sit with you and just listen with an unbiased ear, just to hear where you're coming from, that's love. That's a strong sign of love. We should all be so thankful. We should all be so worthy. Okay? Communication with others, communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. You know, when I look at people, and I find, you know, within my own family, I'm sure within yours too, there's a lot of conflict there sometimes, right? People don't talk to each other anymore. I was reading a report the other day that with the rise in mental health and people going to therapy, we're seeing an increase in people putting up boundaries and cutting off their parents, which is sad. And I believe it's a misunderstanding of therapy. First of all, therapists should not be giving you advice. That's if you got a therapist giving you advice, you might want to change that. But then again, you're probably comfortable because you're cool with that. But that's not how therapy's supposed to work. But this is not the video for that. All right. Asking questions and communicating clearly is probably the crux for why many families dissolve and break down. Because usually once somebody hears something that they've decided to take personal, everything comes crashing down. Instead of asking, and I'm guilty of this too. You know, if you follow my blog, my website, I put up an article recently about re-engaging with my father, and we talked for 6 hours. And if you don't think in that 6-hour conversation after all these months that sometimes he would say things that would infuriate me, you're wrong. But the difference is that I realize the reason why he will say these things is because, number one, he doesn't ask enough questions because he likes to make assumptions. And honestly, asking questions is something that comes with wisdom. And wisdom is, remember, that's the combination. I'm going to say it again. Wisdom is the combination of experience and knowledge. You can have a lot of experience, but if you have no knowledge to go with it, you won't have wisdom. You just have experiences. And I say that because sometimes if you have a lot of experience without knowledge to reinforce it, you may not truly understand what you've been going through, right? That's why you go to therapy and you talk about your past traumas to help you unpackage it. Now you're wise and you understand the situation. That helps you heal. Life is no different. In our conversations, people will say things all the time. And because we don't ask enough questions, we make assumptions. And that drives the conversation. And often, people that are taking the courage to share with you, due to you making those assumptions, it hurts. Like my situation, right? I'll be personal here. I was out of work, full-time work for quite some time. And when I would go to people for support, oftentimes the advice that I would get would miss the mark completely. But it's not because they weren't able, they weren't capable, they just weren't asking enough questions. They were saying repetitive things, which is frustrating because if I've already done these things, exhausted that, I'm coming to you in hopes that maybe you can provide ideology that might take us to another place. But when we don't ask questions, we don't get that information, and we're not afforded that opportunity. But many of us will refuse to do that out of the guise of wanting to see ourselves as experts, even though we've done nothing to be experts in anything. That's the sad truth and reality of man, the flaw. Right? Or, better yet, someone may make a statement, and in said statement, they may say a phrase, they may say some words that may offend you. And because you don't ask questions, you assume this was done on purpose and you decide to go to war and rebuke them. You may challenge them, fight, argue, say some unsavory things instead of asking questions for clarification. What did you mean by that? Instead of assuming they're here to disrespect you. Okay? With just one agreement, you can completely transform your life. Remember that. Just one agreement can completely transform your life. Well, let's move on to the last of the 4 agreements, which is always do your best. Your best is going to change from moment to moment. It will be different when you are healthy as opposed to sick. Under any circumstances, simply do your best, and you will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and most importantly, you're going to avoid regret. I want you to think about that for a minute. Do your best. There are many times in life that you're going through something, and your best may be just showing up. Maybe you, for example, if you have a broken leg, but you used to be a track star, we can't ask you to run that 5-minute mile, right? But if you're able to, with your crutches, walk it in 15 minutes, that's admirable. Because that's the best that you could do. You only have one working leg, and you're in pain probably taking every step. That was the best you could do. You know, when I was younger, I used to weight train. There was a point in my life where I couldn't lift that much. I'm not saying I'm lifting the whole gym now, but I can substantially do a lot more than I did back then. And that's just the point. There was a point in my life where maybe 135 pounds, that's the bar and 245 plates on each end. Able to lift that continuously for 10 to 12 reps 3 times. That's the best I could do. There were other guys that come in there and they want to put more weight on and they can do all this. So be it. That's good for them. We're all running our own race. Now, as I worked out and got stronger, my capability increased. And I was able to do more. But I can't get mad at when I first started how little I could do. Didn't have much time. The muscles have to develop. Okay? Somebody else might want to make fun of you, but that's because they're the loser. Remember, don't take things personal. Oftentimes, people are projecting on themselves because if that's all they could do, they would feel weak too. And they probably still do. A lot of times, people talking ain't doing much. It's the people that are quiet, got their head down, that are getting stuff done. Okay? And because I gave my best effort, my body changed, my muscles built up, and I felt good. And now when I go to the gym, I'm pretty confident. And I don't worry about what anyone else is doing. I just worry about me. You know, even funny enough, on this journey of building Just Inspire Mentoring, and it frustrates me sometimes, people will send me so much stuff from somebody else. I'm always like, did you send them any of my stuff? But, you know, that doesn't happen. But I don't take it personal. Because somebody will send you someone and I go to the website, I look at About Us, keyword About Us. Right now it's about me. But if I go to their website at About Us, I see a team, 6, 8, 10, 12 people together. And I'm like, you know what? They're able to do all that because they got so many hands. Go to the news. They just got a grant for like $40,000, $50,000, maybe $20 million. They have a lot more than I do. So they're able to do a lot more than me. I'm not jealous of that. I'm happy for them. But I'm really proud of what I'm able to accomplish with just myself and my resources. As I grow and get bigger, I'm going to be able to do a lot more. And you have to learn to do the same thing as well. You know, I listened to a TED Talk, forget the lady's name, so please forgive me. But she talks about how she grades her students, not about the number, but about the progress. And she had a student that was failing. He was failing. I'm talking getting 20s, 30s on the test. He took a test after doing some rehash studying and really challenging himself. And come to find out, Come to find out, he still failed, but he got a 50. And the young man was distraught, as a lot of us are when we fall short of the glory that we intend to get for ourselves. We're disappointed. And there's nothing wrong with that. That keeps the fire going. But it can become counterproductive if you get too into it. So she pulled the young man to a side and said, listen, I know this is not the goal that you intended. You didn't come here to fail. I understand that. But you have to look at this, though. You see, you got a 50 on the test, which is 30 points more than what you were getting prior. So you're not a failure, you're successful. Had you been passing the test with a 60, that means you'd have a 90. You'd went from a D to an A. So yeah, you're still in the red, but you're making progress. That's something to be proud of. Because look where you came from. So you keep working. You keep making plays, baby. And you're going to keep getting better. Any young person, as we're closing July and we're coming to August, which means that we're going to be getting ready to return to school. If there is a mindset, if there are tools that I would encourage you to bring with you into school, to work, wherever you go, consider the 4 agreements. Every day when you wake up, when you put your clothes on and you go to be at summer camp, summer school, tutoring, mentoring, or when you go back to school in the fall, think about the 4 agreements. When you raise your hand and you're in that classroom, think about being impeccable with your word. When you're setting goals, when you're exchanging with your teachers, administrators, or even your classmates, don't take anything personally. Don't do it. And don't make assumptions. For example, many times students might not like the criticism that the teacher's giving them. And sometimes you'll assume that he don't like me. He always got something to say to me. I tell students all the time, that's a bad assumption. If I don't like you, I'm going to keep it really short and stay away from you. What's the point of bothering and going back and forth? I wouldn't do that. It's caring about you that drives me to talk and check in with you. And lastly, just always do your best. And as cliche as that sounds, only you know what that really is. You know where you're coming from. You know what you're carrying. Your best will change. Right? You know, I've been doing the best I can with Just Inspire. I had to juggle a lot to get here. A lot. I had to juggle a lot by myself at that. And I'm not proud of that because nobody builds anything alone. You need a team. Okay? But nonetheless, until my team arrives, I'm not stopping. I'm not giving up. So I'm really proud of what I've built. I would think we have, 300 and maybe 60 subscribers. We're supposed to have 10,000. It's been a while, right? But you know what? I didn't have that last year. So I'm proud of this. It might be small growth, but it's growth. So I'm just proud that I'm a better man today than I am yesterday. All right? And if you have a chance, find the book, The 4 Agreements by Miguel Ruiz. Read it. And comment in the video. Let me know what you think. Take care, guys.